Another world figure has paid the penalty of eminence. Monsieur Paul Doumer, elected President of France only a year ago, lies the victim of a murderous attack by a Russian doctor, Gorgulov. The assassination took place in a Paris hotel, the Hotel Solomon de Rothschild. 5 bullets were fired, 3 lodging in the president's body. It could hardly be thought possible that this fine old gentleman who lost 4 sons in the war could have given offense to anyone. But such is fanaticism.
It is the French who has committed the sins against the Russian people, those who are suffering under the yoke of Bolshevism. My soul is not with the king, whom betrayed the country, but with Kerensky. Kill me, how you killed my country. You will perish in a global catastrophe. Dobry wieczór, друзья. Good evening, my friends. Today we're going to talk more about Pavel Gorgulov. I made a joke video of like 2 years ago about Pavel, but I didn't actually make a video about who he is. So today we're going to talk about him. As you saw in the intro, the most famous part of him is killing the French president, Paul Doumer. He's quite a fascinating character even before the assassination. And he's quite zany, quite odd, with weird political opinions, the doctorate, oh boy. So let's go into it. Pavel was born on June 29th, 1895, in the village of Labinskaya in Kuban, South Russia. His parents are unknown, but he was adopted by a Cossack officer named Timothy Gorgulov, which led Pavel to have a very military upbringing and to focus on military medical school. When World War I broke out, he joined the Western Front in Galicia, where a lot of his injuries and mental issues started to arise, such as paranoia, mental disorders, and he started to consider himself the true dictator of National Pan-Russian Party. During the Russian Civil War, he fought in the ranks of the White Volunteer Army in the Kuban and Crimea in the years of 1918 to 1920. When they later lost, he had to immigrate to Poland, where he briefly worked with someone some of you may know, Boris Savinkov, which is mostly known for the paramilitary wing of the Socialist Revolutionary Party. And through Boris, Pavlov learned the importance of terrorism in political struggle. That is, the effectiveness of it. How to make change through, well, violence. And here comes what would have made him famous, sort of before the shooting, and would have been his known of fame after the fact, because in 1921 he moved to Czechoslovakia, studied and graduated in Charles University, and started doing abortions. That became his main way of living there. And it killed quite a lot of women, but also made him sort of known within the field there, and made him a lot of female contacts. While not much is written about that aspect, because obviously why would it? It's very unique for a doctor to do abortions during this time. Again, so it would made him a very safe living. That's up until 1930, where he was banned on doing medicine, because obviously. But during those 4 years of economic safety and economic growth, he had a lot of time to write. He had more freedom and social capital. So that's what he did. We're going to talk a little bit about this soon, the things he have written, the magazines that he written too, the different publications. Very interesting. But I should point out, after he lost his license, that's, his mind is gone at this point. So he traveled to France in 1932, got married again. This is actually the 3rd time he's married. He wrote quite a lot of crazy stuff during this time. We're going to talk about it soon again. And then he planned a terrorist attack in 1932 against Paul Doumer. It was successful, killing him, and that's that. And then all of his writings, all of his work, he sort of got together. The president of Czechoslovakia had to talk about it. Mussolini had to talk about it. Everybody had to talk about this because, Paul Doumer, while only in office for about a year, this is still a big thing. So it's like, he's a fascist. Okay, then Mussolini need to denounce him. He lived in Czechoslovakia. Okay, then the president of Czechoslovakia must denounce him. So It is quite fascinating. But all of the small things he did, everybody had to like either excuse, sort of, we had nothing to do with it. People claimed he was mentally ill, so he can't sentence him to death. And it's like, everybody was like, oh, just get rid of this guy. What the fuck is this guy even? Pavel was worried about how the French handle Russian immigrants like himself, thinking that they don't help enough, they don't do enough, etc., etc. And there was a suicide after the fact as well. It was a waiter that was formerly an officer, Sergei Dmitriev, committed suicide to wash away the dishonor. And in his suicide note he wrote, "I die for France." But even with this one, the relationship between Russia and France didn't change. They sort of swept this very much as under the rug. Like, who's Paul Doumer? Just let's go on with life. Let's ignore that the Frenchman died. Let's go on with life. So luckily, no big, well, I mean, quite big in one sense, but nothing larger happened because of this murder.
Now the National Assembly meets at Versailles for the melancholy task of choosing a successor to Monsieur Doumer. Inside the chamber there is a tense feeling, although it is virtually certain that the Assembly's choice will fall on Monsieur Lebrun, the President of the Senate, who also presides over the meeting of the Assembly. The voting takes 2 hours, and Monsieur Lebrun is elected at the first ballot by 643 votes out of 777 cast.
All right, so let's get into the political ideas of Pavel Gorgulov. And the reason why we know so much about this is because during the trial, the court, both sides were like, either he's crazy, look at these political ideas. Him being a doctor in abortions was known about. They brought it up saying he killed, he raped, he murdered people. He raped women, you see? But yeah, not a lot of evidence for that one. But evidence of his political opinions were there. One of the things he wrote when he was in France before the assassination was the idea of a Scythian in the book, The Secret of the Life of the Scythian. He wrote it under the name of Pavel Bread. And he also wrote a lot about Cossacks. But the aspect of Scythian is very fascinating, and I will tell you about it here. The Scythians were united by a mystical perception of the October Revolution, in which they saw the manifestation of the cleansing Eastern elements and the beginning of a spiritual transformation of humanity. The Scythians wrote about the messianic destiny of Russia, called in their opinion to resist the Philistine bourgeoisie of the West. And this was created by Ivanon Razumnik. This is quite fascinating here. The Secret Life of the Scythian, the book that he wrote, had poetry dedicated to Sergei Yesenin, where it says, "I am Russian, and everything that comes from Russian clearly smells of insolence, like politics, like free thinking, criticism, and all that other stuff, because we are Scythian people, Russian. We are strong and insolent people. We want to turn the world upside down, yes sir, like an old tub. And who will sit under the tub? Oh, my dears, I don't know. And that's why I'm finishing. And as a parting word, I'll just add my tiny saying, the violence will destroy the typewriter." It was in 1931 where he came up with the idea of the more fascistic aspect of the Green movement, or national peasants. So according to theory, the state should be governed by a dictatorial national and military political party of Greens, based on an authority of the Green dictator and strict discipline. The government, police and army are formed from the cadres. Parliament is tolerated only if the majority of its members are from the dictatorial party. Then after a transitional period of dictatorship, a president can be elected, who must be by no means a communist, a socialist, a monarchist, a Jew, a foreigner, an alien and a woman. The party can itself be mobilized as a military organization. All agricultural youth, Russian, are required to join the party. Not only socialism is persecuted, but also monarchism and large-scale capitalism. Persons who do not belong in the Russian people and the Orthodox religion are deprived of a number of political rights. Jews cannot hold any state service, even the most insignificant. The only way to overthrow the Bolshevik regime, understand to a large extent as the rule of the Jew, is external intervention. Russia for the Russians. I hope this gives a tiny bit more of an insight. There's still a lot more to Pavel, but I think I'll stop here. But I will actually end it differently, because I see there is a critique, a response on Gorgulovism, as Pavel Gorgulov's ideology has been called now, Gorgulovism. Let me read it here for you. This is by Vladislav Kordosevich. Gorgulovism's nonsense is no different in origin and meaning from the nonsense precisely proclaimed pompously, pretentiously, and loudly in other works of the same type. The form and content of these deliriums are essentially indifferent. Oh, if only it were just a matter of madmen. Unfortunately, these creatures of crazy literature are mentally healthy people. As in Gorgulov, it is not the mental organization that is affected in them, but, so to speak, the ideological organization. The difference is colossal. Mentally normal, they suffer, so to speak, from a disorder of the ideological system. At the worst thing, and most regrettable of all, is that this is by no means their individual misfortune. More precisely, it is not only they who are to blame for this misfortune. Only in them, with particular force, a certain affection of our culture has manifested itself. The 20th century has arrived. 2 wars, 2 revolutions made the most ignorant, the most illiterate person a direct participant in the greatest events. Feeling like a small but necessary cog in a huge historical meat grinder that was cutting and grinding him, he wanted to figure it all out personally. The most complex problems of religion, philosophy, history began to be discussed at meetings by people who had no ideas about them. Damned answers rained down in abundance on the damned questions. Thus, Gorgulovism was born, before Gorgulov. From great Russian literature, it inherited only one tradition, the most dangerous, to judge the most important things by insight, by intuition. These people are not only incapable of critical thinking, but also unwilling. Any idea, if only it were significantly extreme, sharp, even desperate, born in their shaggy brains or accidentally brought there from outside, is immediately assimilated by them as an immutable truth, then becomes disfigured, overgrown with nonsense, intertwined with scraps of other ideas, and become an obsessive idea. It's hard to say this, but it seems that Gorgulov's ideas half come from Bullock's Scythians. If Bullock had lived to see Gorgulov, he might have fallen ill from shame and grief.